I still think it's easy to shock people. I think it's much harder to grab people's attention in a way that is really effective, but also appropriate if you take into account the way I think NGOs should be using imagery. But I think it is possible. I've seen lots of really powerful pictures with people looking strong and determined, with people struggling clearly against very significant difficulties, that are powerful pictures. And I'm quite heartened by the fact that, particularly on social media, including on Facebook, for example, people respond very well to really powerful positive images as well as just shocking negative images. So the response in the Philippines is on a huge scale, but the disaster is on an even bigger scale. So it affected 14 million people. This is a huge archipelago of islands, many of which are quite remote, and the infrastructure was destroyed by the same devastating forces of the typhoon that left so many people in need of aid. So getting aid through in large quantities in the early days was incredibly hard because the roads were destroyed or buried in debris, because the ports were clogged, because boats couldn't travel, because the weather was still too poor, and airports just couldn't cope with the volumes of aid that needed to be moved. So it was very hard initially to get aid through to even the biggest affected populations, but increasingly that did begin to happen in places like Tacloban, and now it is being pushed out even to more remote areas. The huge challenge now is to make sure that we move from simply keeping people alive to helping them rebuild their lives, and that we get things that are really complicated, like how we work with local people and local authorities to rebuild homes and schools, right. Because that stuff sounds really simple, but the things we learned in Aceh in Indonesia after the tsunami, the things we learned in Haiti, show that actually getting that stuff right, particularly in urban areas, is really tough. It will not be possible to maintain a high level of interest in what's going on in the Philippines. What will happen is the interest will become weaker. That's already happened in the last week to 10 days. And then soon it will become intermittent at best. So what we will do is on the sort of the anniversary, if you like, the 1 month on, the 3 months on, the 6 months, the 1 year on, when there are these major milestones, we will try to bring people back through social media, through traditional media, through direct contact with donors to say, look, this is what's happening. And we'll try not to sugarcoat it. We don't want to just tell people that their money has helped and everything is better now, because that won't be true. You know, for years to come, people will struggle. And we want to portray that honestly, but to show them that that doesn't mean that their help hasn't made a difference, because it will. It'll make a big difference. But that doesn't mean that it'll be simple or quick. I think there's a risk with NGOs that we become a little bit obsessed with ourselves, and that we both positively and negatively overestimate our importance in things. If you look at why people are pulled out of poverty in the developing world, it isn't because of NGOs. It's because people have got better off. It's because the terms of trade have become a bit better. NGOs can help, they can make a difference there. I'm not saying that what we do is a waste of time, but they aren't the thing that changes the game. And that's true of negative things as well. I think it's easy to get off on a great big fat liberal guilt trip about how it's all down to us. But actually, these things existed before we existed. And what we need to be careful about is not perpetuating those stereotypes, because that does undermine what we're trying to do. You know, you might get away with this if your job is simply to grab eyeballs, but our job isn't simply to grab eyeballs. Our job is to make people's lives better. And we can't do that if we're, providing immediate assistance with one hand and reinforcing really negative, damaging stereotypes with the other.